With the Erin Andrews case, everybody had heard about this.
I've never seen a case where one human being has set out to so completely destroy another human being.
The internet can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing for celebrities. Once it's out there, it's there forever. Now everybody knows who Erin Andrews is, reporting for ESPN, but as well as for the stalking.
While she's doing all this traveling around, reporting sports in and out of hotels, there's a man following her.
Michael Barrett was a family man. He was married, he had children, and then he took a turn.
Such a creeper.
She was helpless. She couldn't do anything about it.
This case is a combination of envy, voyeurism, and desire for financial gain.
Total disregard for her personal safety.
Well, she was shaking. She was crying.
I'm so ashamed.
Miss Andrews' case was really the first cyber-stalking crime that our office handled. We had no idea who the defendant was, who he could be, where the videos were taken, how they were taken. We had no idea.
It's July 2009. Popular television sports reporter Erin Andrews is traveling all over the country to cover games for ESPN. But as she is going about her work, she has no idea she has been trailed by a man hell-bent on exploiting her for his own financial gain. Now she is about to find out just how exposed and vulnerable she truly is.
She's just doing her job. She's going to hotels, she's reporting on games, she's leaving, checking in, checking out.
Unfortunately, while she's doing all this traveling around, there's a man following her in and out of these same hotels.
Erin Andrews was in a hotel room, and of course, thinking she was alone in a hotel room, unbeknownst to her, this man had rented a room next door and had worked his way in to set up a camera and was taping her. And he was going to blackmail or sell videos of her.
And these videos went from like 45 to 60 seconds apiece. And he would just continually view her. He was consumed with Erin Andrews and just filming her. Constantly knowing where she's gonna be for the next game, calling that hotel, traveling to that hotel, driving to that hotel from another state to watch her.
The fact that he was able to manipulate her in the way he did, by finding out the hotel she was staying in, being able to manipulate the hotel into putting him in the room right next to hers. The fact that he listened very carefully to make sure she was in the room next to him, and when that was confirmed, to listen as to when she would take a shower, to know that when the shower stopped, that was the point at which to videotape.
So she has no idea about this Michael guy until she got a phone call from one of her friends saying, I think there's a video of you in a hotel room.
He was able to upload what turned out to be clips of her in the nude. He then displayed them publicly on the internet. They went viral, and Erin Andrews' life began to come apart.
Well, Erin didn't believe it. She's like, there's no way it's not me. But then when she saw it, she said, oh my God, that is me. And she immediately called her dad, crying hysterically. He thought something was wrong. And she's like, Dad, my life is over. My career is ruined. I'm ruined, Dad. They got me on video. They got me on video.
And that footage isn't going anywhere. And the rest of her life, whatever accomplishments and things she does with her life, that's always gonna, hover around her.
Miss Andrews is gonna have to be explaining these videos to her grandchildren. I mean, once they're on the internet, they don't ever go away.
Michael David Barrett hardly looks like the kind of man who will destroy a young woman's life, riddle her with anxiety, humiliate her beyond hope, and devastate her career. Yet, that is exactly what Barrett does when he stalks Erin Andrews. The young up-and-coming sports journalist becomes innocent prey to his lascivious game of obsession, voyeurism, and exploitation.
Michael Barrett was an unremarkable person. He had a quiet life. He worked in insurance and decided to start out on a path that ended up badly for a lot of people.
The early life of Michael Barrett showed no indications of having any social or legal or psychological difficulties. He was a family man, he was married, he had children, he then was divorced.
The middle-aged divorced father of two is regarded as a hard-working man who stays out of trouble. His Westmont, Illinois suburban house, with its manicured lawn, fits beautifully among the upper-middle-class neighborhood he lives in. His life seems ideal and uncomplicated. He likes to golf, cook on the gas grill, and watch sports.
He did have a full-time job, but he worked that job for over 30 years. He was involved in the insurance industry.
Michael Barrett moves up the ranks at Combine Insurance over the course of his career, ending up as the National Sales Administrator. He spends half the year on the road living out of his suitcase. But in 2008, the U.S. experiences a crippling recession. The economic downturn, coupled with some poor investments, means Barrett is struggling.
And then he took a turn for reasons that in his own mind, he finds it very difficult to explain.
With mounting financial pressure and work-related stress slowly chipping away at him, Barrett is desperate for a way out. That's when he notices Erin Andrews, the sports journalist. She's trending online. She seems to be everything he is not, confident at the top of her field, and with an even more successful future in sight.
He became fascinated with Erin Andrews, who was a sports broadcaster and was building her career, who was physically very attractive and was drawing a lot of sexual attention in terms of her appearances on ESPN eventually, as well as on the internet. And then for reasons that probably we'll never know, he decided to pursue her in a way that was actually quite unusual.
It's 1978 in Lewiston, Maine. Erin Andrews is born into a tight-knit, loving home to a schoolteacher mom and a father who is a journalist. Erin is beloved. She is the apple of her father's eye and is being brought up with the belief that she is destined for greatness.
A lot of women that I know, like myself, got interested in sports at a very young age to be close to our dads. I would sit in the crook of his knees and watch hockey.
Erin grows up watching NBA games with her father and becomes an ardent fan of the Boston Celtics in the process.
Now, her father was a 6-time Emmy-winning journalist, Erin Andrews, and he was also really into sports. Her father would take her to basketball games, football games, and she would watch, and sometimes even in her head she would perform the commentary to see what's going on, knowing the positions, knowing the names, the points that were earned, the coaches. So she would really take it in, not only as a fan, but maybe this is something I could do. Like, she took it in as it was a study. It wasn't even just for pleasure. It was also like a classroom for her.
But the world of sports journalism is still very much a boys' club. This doesn't deter Erin. While watching TV, she notices a female sports reporter and tells her dad, quote, "That's what I want to do." Graduating from Bloomingdale High School in 1996, there's no doubt Erin is on her way.
Pursuing her dreams, she goes to the University of Florida and gets a BA in telecommunications.
It's always hard for women to break into television, but to break into a genre where it's really male-dominated is always a hard task. You're compared about what you look like, your body size, what you wear, how you wear your hair, the length of the hair, the color of your hair. So all these physical traits precede your skills in terms of what you can do.
When I started in sports, as a woman, you were automatically on enemy territory. Your presence wasn't welcome, and certainly I think there was a lot of jealousy by colleagues and other people. It's a very competitive industry. I think there's a birthright that men felt that, how could a woman know sports better than they did? And so there's always the assumption that you don't know what you're talking about.
Erin begins to freelance at several outlets right after school. She has to really work hard to establish herself as a professional and informed reporter. She doesn't want to be eye candy. She wants to be a serious sports journalist.
She didn't want to be dubbed a dumb blonde. So she actually did the work. She researched these sports, the positions, what they played, the teams, the coaches. She had a lot of research to do because a lot of those shows are live. You're right there in the midst of it, in the action. In 2004, she moved on from freelancing and she started reporting for ESPN. Now that's a serious, major sports channel. So you really have to know what you're talking about and what you're saying. And for her to be a woman, to come on ESPN and report just like the boys, that was a major breakthrough in her career.
Working for ESPN is a dream come true for Erin. The US-based global cable and satellite sports television channel is the perfect venue for her to share her enthusiasm for sports and to make a career for herself.
She was certainly not the first woman to be a sportscaster, but she was one of the more prominent ones, and that put a lot of pressure on her. It's very hard to be taken seriously by both the athletes and the audience, and it was very frustrating for her.
Well, Erin is a gorgeous woman. Anyone can see that. And when she first stepped on that football field, everyone looked at her and said, wow, she's gorgeous. But as time went by, people would start to pay attention to see what she really had to say about the sports, the teams, and the positions that they played.
In 2007, 2008, she's voted America's sexiest sportscaster in Playboy magazine, which has an unfortunate effect on someone who wants to be taken seriously as a sports journalist. She becomes known as Sideline Barbie, and that really, really irks her.
Being an attractive young woman in a male-dominated field continues to present challenges for Erin.
There was one time even where a player got behind her doing a sexually suggestive dance, which was really embarrassing, but it aired because it was live TV.
You would think it would be a glamorous job, but it's not really. I mean, you're in and out of hotels and airplanes and living out of your suitcase. It's gotta be grueling.
Unfortunately for Erin, her increased visibility will leave her prey to a stranger's sick mind. By 2008, Erin Andrews is on her way to being one of the most recognizable on-air sports personalities in America. She's bright, vivacious, and informed on air, and it's infectious. Viewers can't get enough of her. Unfortunately, that public thirst means she is an easy target for someone looking to profit off her and exploit her.
I almost hate to say his name because he doesn't deserve anything. And what he did was actually kind of inhuman.
During one of his business trips, would-be stalker Michael Barrett sees a hotel employee tinkering with a hotel door peephole. He watches and concludes them to be a peeping Tom. The act leaves a lasting impression on Barrett, and he will soon put his own sinister plan in motion.
This case is different in the sense that there's intricate planning involved in it.
Michael Barrett hatches a cruel scheme that will destroy his life and reputation forever. He sets up an account with Dailymotion, a video-sharing website based in France, for the sole purpose of uploading naked videos and profit from them. He has the perfect victim in mind, a woman he watches regularly on television, Erin Andrews.
We discovered in the investigation that he would figure out where Miss Andrews was staying.
You know where a big game was going to be, so he would call different hotels in the area if there was a big sports game in Chicago. He would call every hotel in Chicago to find out if she's staying there. And crazily enough, the employees at the hotel would give him the information, like, yes, Erin Andrews is staying here. This is the room she's staying in. Okay, you know what? Book me in that room next to her.
And that's exactly what he does. January 28, 2008. Michael Barrett spends countless hours calling every hotel in Columbus, Ohio to track down where Erin Andrews will be lodged for the night. He knows that she is scheduled to cover a sports event there. He is determined to find her.
People like myself and Erin who travel as part of our business, it's a different kind of lifestyle. Her employers should be making accommodations for the fact that you are vulnerable, that you need to be sheltered and protected, because they're mostly responsible for the fact that you have to be out there in such a public way to begin with. The exposure itself makes you vulnerable.
After contacting several hotels, Barrett has located Erin at the Blackwell Inn. He then insists on being put up next to her, making up a story that he is traveling with her as part of her crew.
I was shocked to find out that you could call a hotel and find out if someone was there, and perhaps even find out their room number, or even ask to be placed next to them. I don't know how that could ever be appropriate for anyone, much less a celebrity who might be more vulnerable to the kind of attention that females, especially in that business, get.
On February 4th, 2008, Barrett checks in to the Blackwell Inn and waits for Erin to arrive.
He would check in before she arrived, and he would go to the door of her hotel room and remove the peephole and use a hacksaw or some other tool to hack the peephole in half so that he could easily replace the peephole, but it could be removed quickly without much sound.
He puts the original peephole back in place, which is now easily removable. Barrett patiently waits for Erin to arrive, like a tiger hunting his prey.
And so once that was in place, he would wait until she was in the room.
Erin finally arrives into her room. Listening intently, he presses his ear to the wall and waits for her to turn on the shower. He then moves swiftly. He rushes to the hallway, removes the peephole, and begins to record her on his cell phone. The video is only a few seconds long, but Barrett is satisfied. For now.
I don't think that he was worried about people seeing him in the hallway because he took great pains to make sure that he would have some privacy to himself, ironically. In one hotel's case, he actually specifically asked that Miss Andrews be placed in a room at the end of a hall, and then he was placed in the room next to her. And the hotel did that without informing Miss Andrews.
The fact that he then did video her and was able to capture her in the nude all go to an extensive amount of both planning, preparation, and capability on his part to carry this out.
July 2008, 5 months after the last recording of Erin Andrews, Barrett is back at it again. He finds out Erin will be covering a baseball game in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for ESPN. Using his same old tricks, Barrett tracks down the hotel Erin is scheduled to stay in. To find out which room she's in, he calls from the front desk from inside the hotel and asks to be connected to Erin Andrews. He then sees her room number on the hotel phone and asks to have his room changed to the one next to hers. Now his sole focus is ruining her life for his own gain.
All his behaviors point to the fact that this was instrumental, that this was planned, that this was purposeful, this was not impulsive. Therefore, I think an individual bears much more culpability when they do this kind of behavior over an extended period of time, because they're constantly reaching choice points that they're passing where they could decide not to go forward and not to do what they're about to do, yet they continue to do so.
During the investigation, we obtained a document from the hotel that actually noted that he had requested the room next to her and that he was not to be moved without his permission.
September 4th, 2008. Michael Barrett flies to Nashville, Tennessee for a business trip. He knows Erin Andrews will be there as well and checks into the same hotel, the Nashville Marriott Hotel at Vanderbilt University. In his subsequent deposition, he states, quote, "Unfortunately for both of us, I could hear that the shower was on in her room when I walked by. I waited until the shower went off, then I pulled out the plug and waited for the opportunity. I waited for a matter of 10 seconds. I waited for her to be visible."
Specifically psychopathology. And in this case, we also would want to entertain the idea that he was inclined to engage in voyeurism. And voyeurism, we know, is a behavior that focuses on seeing somebody in the nude, engaging in sexuality, undressing, where they do not know their privacy is being violated, and then being stimulated by that particular behavior.
It's late January 2009. 4 months after his last stalking of Erin Andrews, Barrett is running out of money and his future is uncertain. He thinks of a fast and easy solution to his financial woes, the illegally obtained nude videos in his possession. Barrett writes to the celebrity news website TMZ, sending a brief clip of Erin Andrews naked in a hotel room. TMZ tells him that they will get back to him in 24 hours and let him know if they are interested.
He initially tried to sell the videos. That did not work. TMZ was not interested in buying them, although they never took them to the police until after the case had gained notoriety and the police approached them.
February 17th, 2009. Barrett decides to post 4.5 minutes of grainy cell phone video taken in Nashville and Columbus to dailymotion.com under the screen name Go Blazers. The posts are labeled Hot Blonde, and sexy hot blonde sports celebrity shows us her all. He continues to post videos on various sites, hoping the clips will go viral.
Well, Erin has no clue about this guy named Michael. She has no idea she's being stalked. She's just doing her job. She's going to hotels, she's reporting on games, she's leaving, checking in, checking out. So she has no idea about this Michael guy until she got a phone call from one of her friends saying, "I think there's a video of you in a hotel room."
July 16th, 2009. Erin Andrews opens up her laptop and watches the video suggested by her friend. Within seconds, she sees the demise of the career she worked so hard to achieve evaporate into smoke before her very eyes.
Erin was in shock. She said, "Oh my God, that is me." And she immediately called her dad, crying hysterically.
Thousands of miles away, Erin's father thinks his daughter has been physically injured because she is screaming so loudly. He tries to calm her down, but she's inconsolable. Upset and shaken, Erin tells her father that her career is over, saying, quote, I'm done. Get it off the internet. I'm naked, Dad."
People always think of this as just, some nude picture got posted, so what? She was stalked. That's really frightening, to think that somebody is following your movements, that someone is listening to your conversations in the room beside you, that somebody is waiting for the shower to come on, that somebody is catching you at your most vulnerable moments, just for fun.
Erin's world is shattered. Overnight, she becomes a completely different person, paranoid, anxiety-ridden, and depressed. She is afraid to change out of her clothes in case someone is watching. She's riddled with anxiety and is incapable of sleeping. She is concerned there might be more videos out there and that someone is secretly recording her at all times.
She started dressing differently. She moved around differently. She did not want to stay in hotels anymore.
Erin is embarrassed and scared. She slowly starts to retreat from her former self, and she has a tough time getting out of bed. Her whole world is collapsing, and there's nothing to stop the avalanche of feelings of despair and humiliation that plague her.
This woman has been so sexualized, it's like a repeat violation. She was violated by the hotel clerk, not looking after her, the stalker who filmed her, and then every single person who's watched that footage on the internet is again violating her. And that footage isn't going anywhere, and the rest of her life, whatever accomplishments and things she does with her life, that's always gonna hover around her.
Screen grabs of the video are published everywhere, and Erin's nightmare somehow gets worse and worse. Now the videos of her in the nude are everywhere.
They went viral, and Erin Andrews' life began to come apart because of the nude displays of her. We typically will see either depression, anxiety, or post-traumatic stress disorder in a significant number of individuals that are victimized by stalkers, and her case is no exception.
The paparazzi is now following Erin Andrews to see where she is. They want to get that shot of her looking sad, looking depressed because of the videos, because people are wondering, how is she feeling?
The public's appetite for this sensational story is insatiable, and people are starting to wonder if this is another celebrity ploy for fame, and even if Erin released this video herself.
The other thing, too, to make it worse for Erin, is that she was actually accused of putting it out there to further her career, that somehow this would be to her advantage. But Erin was already a celebrity. Erin already had coveted positions in sportscasting. Obviously, she was widely recognized as being an attractive woman, so why she would have needed to have done something like that doesn't even make sense.
I think Miss Andrews definitely suffered from this crime. I know that there were people at the time that said this was actually good for her career, and that maybe this was a stunt.
This is no way a publicity stunt. Erin Andrews actually suffered from symptoms of PTSD because it was such a traumatic experience in her life.
Despite having a private security team, Erin doesn't feel safe. And with more and more people watching the exploitative videos online, she is as vulnerable as ever.
Erin Andrews' video was viewed over 16 million times when it was placed on YouTube. So there was maybe some type of fame and some type of high that he got to know that people was watching his evil work.
2009. Michael Barrett is a recently divorced father who has built a reputation as a hard-working, law-abiding citizen. That all changes when he begins a calculated and cunning plan to stalk and record Erin Andrews illegally. But why would a man who has no prior criminal record set out to destroy a young woman's life?
Most people under extreme stress can be reactively violent, defend themselves, defend somebody that they love. But this case is different in the sense that there's intricate planning involved in it. And when you have a case such as this where there's intent to damage somebody else emotionally, but not to assault them physically, one has to think about pathology, specifically psychopathology.
Though Barrett was never diagnosed, his obsessive and voyeuristic behavior implies deeper psychological issues.
Envy is the wish to destroy goodness. And typically the envious person sees a quality in another person that is very positive, but they recognize they don't have it in themselves. And so they set out to damage that quality as a way to feel better about what they're lacking. And so looking at this particular case through the lens of envy, one can see how Mr. Barrett would have wanted to somehow damage her reputation.
As Erin Andrews deals with a backlash of press that claim her nude video clips all over the internet are a publicity ploy, the FBI becomes involved with the case.
Prior to 2005, the federal stalking statute really involved physical stalking. It was about people who crossed state lines in order to hurt or to, place a victim under surveillance. In 2005, they added a section that talked about using the internet to harass victims and to cause substantial emotional distress.
In terms of how this affected Erin Andrews, I can only turn to the individuals who were actually treating her, the mental health professionals who diagnosed her as having symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, and that this disorder was moderate in her case, and that she would heal with time and treatment.
She was reluctant to go to therapy, but her father pushed her to go into therapy because she used to be very outgoing and witty and humorous, wanted to have a good time. Now she just wanted to stay in the house, in a closed room, and just be by herself.
As the investigation ramps up, the sick nature of the stalking case becomes apparent.
We set up a meeting between a few FBI agents and a couple of prosecutors from my office, including me, where we met with her at her attorney's office and spent most of the day sort of going over what had happened and trying to backtrack our way to the crime. The sort of infamy of this case definitely altered the way that we handled the case. There were several reasons. At the beginning of this case, we didn't know very much at all. We had these videos, we knew that they were out there, but we had no idea who the defendant was, who he could be, where the videos were taken, how they were taken. It could have been somebody on her crew. We had no idea. And part of the problem was because this person was still out there, we didn't want them to know that we were investigating. Miss Andrews actually played a critical role in helping us find him. One of the things that we did on the first day was, as painful as it was for her, we had her review all of the videos.
July 29, 2009. As painful as it is, investigators need Erin to review all 8 clips that vary in length from 10 to 45 seconds. She feels uneasy and vomits before watching the nude footage.
One of the videos actually showed her ironing a pair of pants, and she was able to identify that pair of pants. And she said, I only wore that pair of pants once. And so she was able to go back and figure out which hotel she was staying at the time. And that happened to be the hotel where there was the note in Mr. Barrett's record that says, I want the room next to Erin Andrews and don't move me under any circumstances. Once we saw that note, we were like, this is the guy.
Despite the best efforts of investigators, stalker Michael Barrett suspects they are onto him. He knows he's left a digital trail behind, and it won't be long until officials figure out he's the one behind the videos. It's only a matter of time before he's officially charged.
Well, the FBI had learned that he was on a business trip and that he was returning on a particular flight, and so we had just contacted the airline before the flight and said, we need to effect an arrest of a passenger. Can you make sure that no one deboards the plane until we can remove him?
The investigators have no idea how dangerous or deranged Barrett may be, but they are prepared for the worst.
So he was escorted off of the plane and taken into custody right there on the tarmac. As they were driving him from the airport to FBI, where they were going to book him, essentially, they passed one of those scrolling news things on the side of the building that announced that he had been arrested. So it hit the news pretty fast.
The arrest is front-page news everywhere. Experts are trying to figure out how this case fits into the traditional mode of stalking. It's the first of its kind in the new digital era.
Normally, if a stalking case only involves a person in one state physically stalking another person and they never cross a state line, it's largely going to be prosecuted by the local police and the DA's office because it's not going to bring the federal government involved. The federal interest in this case was involved for 2 reasons. One, they didn't reside in the same state. So there was interstate nexus in that way, but there was also interstate nexus because he used the internet as part of the crime. Once he had posted it to a French website, he had used a tool of interstate commerce to commit the crime, and so that's why the federal government could be involved in the case.
One of the first things the FBI does is track down the footage of Erin Andrews on the Daily Motion website.
At the time, the websites that were just simply reposting the videos would not have had any sort of liability in US law. Now that Miss Andrews owns the videos and can send them cease and desist letters as the copyright holder, if they chose to ignore her request to cease and desist, they would be facing liability under US law.
While there seemed to be no consequences for sites around the globe that reposted the clips, Erin and law enforcement worked to ensure those directly involved are held responsible. The case involves numerous companies who recklessly endangered a young woman's life.
It was caught and brought to light, and then they found themselves in a federal courtroom. And she wasn't going to let him get away with it.
In 2009, most non-sports fans are being introduced to Erin Andrews through a series of illegally taped, grainy cell phone video clips of a naked woman fresh out of the shower in a hotel room. Erin has worked hard to make her dream as a sports broadcaster a reality, but thanks to stalker Michael Barrett, her life has turned into a nightmare. On October 3rd, the man arrested for stalking her is captured, and the ensuing hearing quickly becomes a media circus.
With the Erin Andrews case, everybody had heard about this because she's very well known, sports figure, television, very beautiful. So this was in federal court in Los Angeles, and she came in with supporters, with family, and everybody was in court waiting for her to come.
November 20th, 2009, David Barrett makes his first scheduled court appearance in a Los Angeles federal courthouse. A $100,000 bond is set. He posts the bond, and 3 days later, he pleads not guilty to one count of interstate stalking. His lawyer describes him as, quote, a regular guy as you'll ever meet. I don't think he's even had a traffic ticket.
The courtroom was pretty crowded for both of the hearings. It was very solemn. There were no winners in that courtroom.
When the hearings officially begin in December of 2009, Barrett has not only changed lawyers, he's changed his plea.
The two possible tracks for a criminal case in the United States is trial or guilty plea. In this case, he agreed to plead guilty, so there was no trial. Miss Andrews was present at the guilty plea, and she spoke. She has a right as a victim to speak at the guilty plea.
She came in very tall and graceful and hair pulled back, very simple, not a lot of makeup, just a cinched belt, black and white, clean. And she took over the courtroom, almost like she was an attorney. She was her own attorney, her own witness, and she was terrific.
Erin Andrews addresses the court, stating that Barrett's actions had a devastating impact on her and her family. She states, quote, this happens every day of my life. Either I get a tweet or somebody makes a comment in the paper or somebody sends me a still of the video to my Twitter or someone screams it at me in the stands and I'm right back to this. I feel so embarrassed and I am so ashamed.
I think her experience being live, being on air, talking to players, being on the field, having great ability to express herself was fantastic. She wasn't a victim. She was in control of the situation.
Miss Andrews was a rock. She was extremely well-spoken. I do remember at one of the hearings when she got up to speak, she tripped a little bit, and afterwards she told me that she was really sort of stressed about that in her mind because she was worried that she was just gonna wipe out in front of everybody in the courtroom, but I would never have known.
She pointed to him, but she was not looking at him. She was looking at the judge. I don't think she was going to give him the courtesy of even looking at him. She spoke to him. She spoke down to him. She showed her superiority. Very, very strong, yet completely vulnerable. Totally likable and believable person. She was shaking, she was crying. Not when she was directly addressing the judge. I think she held it all together and then she was crying. I think everybody was smitten with her because she's just, quite a character and quite articulate. And the judge is a much older gentleman, and I think that he was letting her say whatever she wanted to say. He didn't try and shorten what she was trying to say.
A sharp contrast to Erin's powerful presence. Michael Barrett looks like he just wants to disappear.
Well, when I saw the stalker, Michael Barrett, I was struck by how sheepish he seemed. If he could have found a hole to crawl in, he would have. Very embarrassed to be caught like that. You couldn't have gotten redder than he did. He was just sweating it out.
I actually think that he was a little bit different than maybe some other celebrity stalkers. I don't think he ever intended to meet her. I don't think he ever intended to be in the same room with her. I think that, you know, one of the things that enabled him to do this crime was sort of the distance that he had from her. And so I don't think for him it was any sort of victory to be in that courtroom with her.
Barrett cries while addressing Erin. He speaks about his children and how he feels he has let them down. He goes on to say, quote, "There are no words to adequately tell Miss Andrews how sorry I am. I hope someday she can forgive me." And he goes on to state that, quote, he would spend the rest of his life regaining the respect of his friends and family and atoning for his mistakes.
By the end of the case, after the victim had testified, after he had seen all the evidence, the judge was very sympathetic and said, "I've never seen a case where one human being has set out to so completely destroy another human being." I think that until you sort of experience it and see it firsthand, it's a little bit easier to dismiss cyberstalking than it is a physical crime, like physical stalking. In this case, Mr. Barrett was sentenced to 30 months in prison, in federal prison. I thought that that was within the range that the government had recommended, and I thought that that was a reasonable sentence given all of the circumstances. Mr. Barrett was not a likely candidate for recidivism. There was significant punishment. He was a first-time offender. I think that all of these things the judge has to take into account when imposing sentence, and so I think it was the right result.
I'm glad that he'll be away from anyone that he could harm for the next 30 months. But no, I would like a longer sentence.
I think Miss Andrews definitely suffered from the idea that maybe she didn't really suffer from this crime. I know that there were people at the time that said this was actually good for her career. Hers was sort of the first where we had a chance as the Department of Justice to sort of say in public filings, look, these people are really victimized and they're hurt and they continue to be hurt. I think I said at this defendant's sentencing, Miss Andrews is going to have to be explaining these videos to her grandchildren. I mean, once they're on the internet, they don't ever go away. One of the things that we did as part of the plea in that case was to have the defendant transfer the copyright. So now she owns the videos, and so she can sue anybody that's using the videos without her permission.
After sentencing, Erin Andrews tells the media, quote, "For my part, I will make every effort to strengthen the laws on a state and federal level to better protect victims of criminal stalking." She also files a civil suit against Michael Barrett in the Nashville Marriott at Vanderbilt University and Windsor Capital Group, the management company, for $75 million that goes to court in 2016. While Erin prevails in court so far, she has no idea of the challenges that await her.
The point of the lawsuit was the life. We want to talk about things in terms of money and career and exposure, and as if that's the end-all and be-all. And it's not. You know, what happened to a human being is far more important, and the trajectory of her life and how this stopped her in mid-flight.
Someone screams at me in the stands and I'm right back to this.
February 2016, renowned sports reporter Erin Andrews is struggling to get her life back on track after being subjected to extreme trauma and humiliation by convicted stalker Michael Barrett. Barrett has been found guilty of interstate stalking and serves 20 months in prison, but he isn't the only one who needs to be held responsible. Erin launches a massive lawsuit against the hotel that enabled Barrett to exploit her.
She sued not only the man, but the hotel, the Marriott, for making it possible for him to rent the room next to hers and tap into the peephole in the door, which was substandard.
The fact that the Marriott went after her, requested her private doctor's records, gynecological exams, performance reviews, all as a way of intimidating and humiliating her once again. So they piled on. So I was very happy to hear that they were on the hook for the rest of the damages.
It could have stopped this, and I'm so angry. I'm so mad.
I think the hotel rightfully was made responsible. They're certainly responsible in A, letting him book the room next door to her, and B, putting in these substandard peepholes that he could simply unscrew and film through.
One of the local entertainment shows, about a week after we made the arrest in the case, tried the experiment again at the same hotel. They had an anchor check in, a female anchor check in, and then they had another anchor say, hey, where is she located in the hotel? Can I have the room next to her? And it worked. Again, a week after the case had become public.
I think it's completely insane that the hotel gave away that information. If that was me, I mean, I forgot how many tens of millions she got, but every single penny was deserved. You know, for her nude footage to be out in the internet for the rest of her life. And there's no scrubbing of the internet. Once it's out there, it's out there. It doesn't matter if there's a lawsuit. You can't take down every server. Good luck. Even if you have the best lawyers in the world.
Barrett doesn't attend the 2-week civil trial. Instead, a recorded deposition from Erin's stalker is played in court. The jury deliberates for 7 hours and awards Erin $55 million. The jury finds Barrett to be 51% at fault and requires him to pay out more than $28 million, which he will likely never see. West End Hotel Partners, which owns and operates the Nashville Marriott at Vanderbilt University, is also at fault and asked to pay out more than $26 million.
One of the things that gets lost in time, I think, is that Miss Andrews wasn't Michael David Barrett's only victim. There were videos of more than a dozen other women in hotel rooms, obviously shot through a peephole, and they were tied to him. These other victims, because they weren't women that we were not able to identify, it's impossible to say what was really driving him. I mean, obviously, Miss Andrews wasn't his only victim.
Erin Andrews started off her career as the girl next door who loved sports. But after years of proving herself, she is now known as, in her own words, as the girl in the hotel scandal. And Erin was not the only victim of a serial stalker. She was certainly the most visible. Anyone with an internet connection can view the sinister actions of a man who set out to not only cause emotional distress on his victim, but also seek financial gain.
I think that the crime against Miss Andrews actually sort of opened the door to a number of prosecutions by the Department of Justice nationwide, because the section of the statute that we used to prosecute the defendant in that case had not really been used all that much, and it had been fairly recently passed at the time that we charged Mr. Barrett. And so there were a number of cases that followed after that, but I think Miss Andrews' case sort of blazed the way for the rest of us to follow.
After serving just 20 months, Barrett is released in 2012. He files for bankruptcy and moves to Portland, Oregon.
I think this case involving Erin Andrews does fit many of the elements of cyberstalking that have been advanced in the federal statutes in the Violence Against Women Act, particularly in its new iterations, which Erin Andrews, to her credit, was involved in. And I think that her behavior shows how you can turn victimization into an event that can advance the healing in yourself as well as in society when these acts do occur. And I commend her for her involvement in the political arena to make that happen.
Well, after all of this and all of the fallout and all of the effect on her, she takes a gig as a contestant on Dancing with the Stars. She did so well on that show, not in terms of the competition, but just in terms of her on-air personality, that they brought her back as the host.
Erin is now arguably the most recognized female sportscaster across America. Despite working to overcome the trauma, she's still being reminded of the stalking incident. And no matter how hard she tries, she can never put it behind her because copies of her nude image still exist online today.
I think one of the things that's hard for victims like Miss Andrews is that these cases never end for them. The defendant has served his sentence. I don't want to minimize the impact of the conviction and the prison time had on him, but the victims of these crimes are going to be victimized for forever, essentially, because once these images are out there, they're out there permanently, because lots of people have made copies and have saved copies, and there's no way to eliminate them from the internet once they're out there.